We're back once again, only on this last call. Last call to the alcohol, only on the lastcallpodcast.com. And join me once again. Well, we'd love to have me on the first time. We decided, hey, let's do two. So I bring you once again from ACW Wrestling Promotions and Tooneytown Wrestling, the outspoken, the eloquent, and the 26-inch pythons. That's right. Eat your heart out, Hulk Hogan. I give you Kevin Apollo. So, Kevin, I gotta ask a question. Are
Sure,
you
bud.
a glutton for punishment? Do you like being abused? Do you want torture porn? I mean, because why the hell are you a wrestling promoter?
Oh,
Being a wrestler is
dude.
bad enough. Now you gotta babysit these kids. So once again, if somebody asked us, no, did you lose your mind deciding to be a wrestling promoter?
Dude, it can be rough. It can be my wife always I say like the week of a show or going into the show is usually when it's just peak misery. You know, I I take pride in being brought up a certain way. When I started 4,000 years ago, and there was a lot more emphasis on being professional. So if you can't make the date, you make sure they know well in advance. You're not going to double shot unless you have no choice, and it better be like an AM PM thing, or you just understand that as a wrestler, you have more to do other than get in the ring and wrestle for 5 to 10 minutes. The but and then it's always a case of if it can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. So yeah, I guess I'm a little bit of a glutton for punishment, but for me, when the show is finally up and running and and if it's working, and if it's working and everybody's really happy, that's it kind of makes it worth it. And being in New York State, it's also really just a game of breaking even because it costs you $1 jillion to do just one simple tiny show. So as long as I could say I almost broke even and everybody had a good time, it does make it worth it for me. But I do find that as I'm getting a little older, I keep having those Roger Murtaugh moments, if you know what I mean. So
Oh, I do. So first, let's ask a big question. Everybody wants to know what the hell does a promoter do? And unlike I'm guessing, like a Tony Khan or at this point, Triple H, you have to wear many hats. So what exactly are your official duties besides promoter? I'm guessing like you help set up the ring, you help, right, book the shows, you help, right, you help in terms of coordinating medical, getting catering. Like how many hats do you wear for just one friggin' show?
what because I don't have the luxury of having a school, to kind of provide that ancillary income. And then with it, help because when you are brand spanking new, if you especially if you haven't debuted, one of the things that your student should be doing is, although they're not wrestling, they should be present at every show they can go to lend a hand. Someone will need to do music, someone will need to help the ring crew with the ring, someone will need to make sure the tickets are getting collected. I'm kind of by myself, so I do a little bit of everything, and then just rely on the gracious assistance of either long-term fans, longtime fans who kind of know what's up and kind of see me running around, or people in the venue who just kind of see the amount of work that's going into it. And I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky, in that regard. To have some quality people who step up to make the process a little bit easier. But in terms of what does a promoter do? Um, the roles are a little conflated, right? So we should be clear. Like a promoter and booker are really two different things. A promoter, just like if you were doing, just like with music, a promoter is securing the venue. The promoter secures the venue, provides the marketing materials, and helps the talent have opportunities to sell the show. Because it's not the promoter who sells the show; it's the talent who sells the show. So like, I guess case in point, like here's the old school one. Like if Ryan Cabrera is gonna be, gonna be somewhere. there's a reason why, like, it's if a movie's coming out, it's Schwarzenegger is on the Today Show, something like, because it's the celebrity, it's the talent who sells the feature. It's up to the producers to to pay those to pay those those marketing, and what are they, the promotional consideration fees, to put the people in the right place at the right time, to put out the message. So as a promoter, I have to do all that, work with the venues, and depending on where you are, you may have to do a lot of selling, because the not all indie feds are the same. Some people forget that they're doing a show in a VFW or an Elks Lodge, and they may come in with some blood and guts, and usually that kills it for everybody. So I'll call a spot to see if they'll let us in, and then I have to do a lot of explaining that we are different. And one of the things I did with ACW was I made it a point to put a lot of focus on being a family slash community show, where the majority of our events are aimed at generating money for charity. I'm in the it'll be actually November 2nd, it'll be 6 years. In the 6 years we've been around, we've raised a little under $10,000, in charity for different things, whether it be for I can't remember the name of the organization, but they purchase coats for the homeless. We've done stuff for the ARC, which is an organization that takes care of special needs children and adults. Raise money for local youth centers, youth and community centers, things like that. Little leagues, and then actually the one I'm most proud about is I won't say her name, but there was a family, the a nurse who was a her husband was a vet, or rather is a vet, I should say. Her husband is a vet. And then he became extremely ill with COVID and was not doing well. And then she lost her job. She lost it. She was laid off for making a personal decision, and the family needed help. And my mall partners in Middletown worked really hard to help us generate a lot of money for them. And it was really cool because the kids got to get into the ring, and I'm a sucker for giving the big giant check, for people, and it was a cool moment. But I've worked really hard to kind of differentiate us from a lot of the nonsense indies, especially listen, if you live on the border of New Jersey or close to New Jersey, there's a lot of crap. There's a lot of crap running around. So on the promoter side, there's that. And then there's the booking side. The booking side, bookers don't just well, I should say a good booker, it's more than just making matches, right? Like you've got to sit down and you've got to develop the concept of the show. I'm a firm believer in, if you're coming to a show, you have to emulate what people see on TV. So there needs to be a story. There needs to be a story thread throughout the entire event that ties it all together for everybody. Kind of leave them wanting a little bit more, and then try to keep it as fun, as fun, or I should say as kinetic as possible for whoever's there. And it was kind of funny. One of my mall shows, it was the first time I had met Kevin Sullivan. I had Sullivan and Dreamer on the show, and at the end of the show, Sullivan, hey kid, I love what you're trying to do. You're giving them story, and no one does that. And then, like 2 days later, I call Dreamer to go get some advice. And he's like, "Yeah, bro, just give him matches. You don't have time for that. You don't have time to tell the story." And both points made sense. I understood where Tommy was coming from. I popped for Sullivan telling me that I was doing a good job because it was Kevin freaking Sullivan, telling you that he loved the show. But you've got to sit down and develop the stories, and then you've got to put matches together that make sense for your product, but also try to make sure that the people in the matches can complement each other. So if you've got, like, someone who's relatively new, and they want to do 4 billion moves in a match, well, you've got to try to give them a dance partner who can help them, do what they want to do and do it well. but also kind of protect them from themselves, and it can just kind of complement the strengths, hide the weaknesses. Is really kind of what it goes into. And then you've also got to be super flexible because a lot of the indie guys do not have that level of professionalism that they should. If someone's gonna bang out on you, 2 hours before the show, and you've got to be able to adjust. So I'll sit down, I'll book the card, I go, okay, no, these five guys are solid, come hell or high water. These are my ride or dies. These four, they're pretty solid, but if there's a shiny object, they may go to it. And then you also got to pay attention to who else is running because it does function a little differently now. In the old days, especially in the Jersey side, there were there were four promoters that you knew um not to F with them. And if you did, there was going to be hell to pay. Now it's a little different. Guys will see you running and they will schedule a show at the same time, even though you're a bunch of hours apart. It's just it's really annoying. And I have the mindset of, hey, there's enough for everybody to eat at the table if we're a little smarter about it. But some people just they like to make this more complicated than it needs to be. So you've got to be mindful of, okay, I'm running now. This guy's probably going to run. So, I know it's going to be a deluge of people going, hey, can I go on first? Hey, can I go on second? And not everybody can. The other part of it is let's see what else. You've got to be a social media manager. Listen, I'm in my 40s. I only know how to use what I have to use. The but you've got to have your toes in a little bit of everything. Even if you have to be a bloody graphic designer because the a lot of people charge a lot of money now, and it's especially if you're running New York, everything costs money. So if you want to try to walk out of there with a little bit of something, you got to figure out how to do what you got to do by yourself, or at least have people who are willing to go, hey man, let me let me work, let me work with you. I'll get you paid up eventually. Just be a little patient. Also you got to be a freaking therapist, man. And this, I'm sure this happens at all levels. All really good wrestlers have a little bit of an ego, or they suffer from imposter syndrome, and you have to know how to navigate those waters, to make sure that everybody stays happy. The Also too, there's a really a disproportionate amount of interpersonal beefs at this, on the indies these days. I'm from old school, man. Like, all right, we have beef. Well, if we're not going to settle it by throwing it down in the back of the parking lot and putting it away, then it's not that big of a deal, and you have to be able to work with people you don't like. The Now it's like, well, we had a match 7 months ago, and I thought he was a little snug with me, and it's just so unprofessional. And in my head, I'm like, a little snug, all right. Well, you should have wrestled some of the bastards I wrestled because, like, if they chopped you, they were actually trying to knock your soul out of your body. Because the mindset was, well, at the Indies, if a front row seat is probably only 6 to 8 feet away from the actual ring. So if you're throwing whiffers, you just shit all over it. I'm sorry, I cursed. You just crapped all over everything, and then I told everybody it's fake. So we hit people very hard in safe places. If you can't take that, you shouldn't do that. If I say that today, I'm going to be lit up on social media, and someone's going to tell me that I'm a bully or some freaking soft nonsense. The So it's a lot of hats, a lot of hats. And then you got I don't have a I got to you got to call the Penske truck. You got to get your ring crew. You got to make sure that at the end of the show everybody stays to help the ring crew because that seems to be also a lost art too. I'm a big proponent of Charles Robinson and John Cena put the ring together at WrestleMania. So what WrestleMania have you main evented that you can't do this? It's stuff. And then oh my God, people in your inbox all the time. Hey, can I get in your show? My rate is, and it's gonna trigger some people. I'm like, bro, I don't care that some website alleges that you're a darling. At the indie level, no one knows who you are. You do not have a rate. Your rate should be contingent upon the number of asses you put in seats. So if you can't tell me what your ass to seat ratio is, you don't have a rate. It's impossible. The if you tell me your rate is $50, well then it means that at a bare ass minimum, the BAM, I had an old sales manager used to call it the BAM, the bare ass minimum. At the BAM, that means that you should be generating for me $150 for the $50 bill I'm going to give you. If you can't do that, you shouldn't be getting 50. You know, so outside of a name like a dreamer, like a dreamer who has been on TV and done it all, there's you know that when you put certain people on a poster, even if the person doesn't come, they're going to stop and look at the poster and probably have a conversation about it. Like again, back in the day, like those classic guys just have a lot of pull. Someone sees Tito Santana on a poster, like, wow, Tito's still going, and then they're gonna sit down and have a 20-minute conversation about how they used to watch so and so on a TV. And I always found it funny that if it was a man of a certain age, it was always Haystacks Calhoun or Wahoo McDaniel. But so that's just kind of that's just a little sample of anything that you got to deal with. It's a mixed bag, and it's honestly it's never ending. And then for me, at the post show, get everything wrapped up. But I'm also a big believer in the building that you're in needs to be cleaner than it was when you arrived. So I will oversee. I'll oversee the cleaning and make sure I'm the last person. Sorry, make sure I'm the last person out the building, so that there are no issues, and then make sure I stay, in close contact with the people who run the facility, while the show's going on, to make sure that they're happy, especially if there were dignitaries. I always try to reach out to whoever the local government is to see if we get a mayor or a supervisor to show up, and, try to give them a little moment, at some point in time during the show. Because again, it's, again, for me, it's about maintaining that sense of community, and make sure that everybody kind of goes home happy. So that's about it in a nutshell, brother.
So I know in New York years ago they passed for at least combat sports, boxing, MMA. They passed stringent insurance bills where you had to have at least $1 million minimum requirement for every fighter that's on the card for possible traumatic brain injury.
Mhm.
Granted, wrestling is not considered a sport, quote unquote, in terms of those laws. But as a promoter, it's one thing for WB and AEW because they have the contracts, they have the money, they have the infrastructure. How much do you have to worry about that? Because as you said, it is pro wrestling. People do get hurt, even though it is, as people say, it's quote unquote fake. It's not. People get bumps, bruises, sometimes concussions. So how much for you? How tough is that? Trying to find insurance to make sure. Oh crap! I don't get sued because
No,
somebody
I
got
get.
injured. And next thing you know, they're saying, "Oh, it's my fault," and then they had to pay out of my own pocket.
Mhm. Well, in New York State, so you have to be licensed by the commission, which means you have to have a bond. I have a lot of grievances with the commission and how they do things, but I will also be one of the ones who will say that the commission is very important. They should exist, and there should be some kind of regulation, because it shouldn't be the Wild West like how it is in Jersey. Um, you know, the you there should be certain protections for people who do take the time to, one like me. I have an LLC, so I pay taxes. I pay taxes. I make sure the state gets theirs. I make sure Uncle Sam gets his. The I maintain an annual insurance policy that covers everything that they want. With that said, New York State does like to have its cake and eat it too. In one breath, they will tell us that wrestling isn't a sport, but we're going to police it like a sport. So my insurance policy, it can't be a sports-based policy. It has to be a stunt-based policy. The But the commission has to be there to collect its sporting event taxes. So, I get it. A lot of it's a cash grab. But I would say things like the bonds are really important because, back in the day when you had shady promoters, you know, um, everybody's up front working, and then they're in the back changing. While they're in the back changing, the slimy promoter slid out the back door and is going to stiff everybody on pay, or listen, so and so got hurt, and the promoter's not trying to pay up, so the $20,000 bond exists to protect the boys, and in that sense, it's great to have. I trying to remember, I think we had a whole big controversy about 4 or 5 years ago with a guy who was kind of leeching off of the big event, and he brought in like every name under the sun that he dealt, right? Del Rio, Mystica, like it's just tons and tons and tons of names. The guy knew the show was going to, I think he rented out Hammerstein. You knew the show was going to bomb, and instead of canceling it, held it anyway, and then ran out the building, left one of the kids helping, holding the bag, and and this poor kid almost got the crap kicked out of him. I think the guy faked the guy faked a heart attack. He faked chest pains and snuck out the back. Hold on, trying to figure out why my camera here is getting so blurry on you. Um but he ducked out the back, and you know what? The commission stepped in and extracted the bond and made sure everybody who needed to get paid got paid to the best of their ability, because the budget on that show was monstrous. I guarantee you, it either came closer, maybe even possibly exceeded the 20K. But that's where having the commission's good. The other part of it is, let's see, what we see. We touched on the insurance bond, stuff like that. It's just, listen, it's costly. You have to have a doctor and an ambulance on site. I find it extremely redundant because, frankly, the doctors just gonna say call an ambulance. And the EMT can do what the doctor does. Where it's a little difficult, is the day of the private practice, hometown doctor, outside of running in New York City, that's kind of coming to an end. If you're in the outer boroughs or a little further upstate, a lot of these smaller doctors' offices are being consolidated into things like Montefiore, Crystal Run, and the bigger companies don't allow the doctors to do things like this, and it's as simple as just taking blood pressure. They'll they will pull their malpractice insurance because they don't want them to have the liability, and the state won't let you use like a dentist or a podiatrist, even though they went to medical school. So frankly, a doctor is a doctor is a doctor. It has to be specifically an MD. Um, you know, to me, I frankly think that you should at least, at the very least, be able to use anybody who went to medical school and or a nurse practitioner. The because again, all the doctors doing, they're doing a pre-match checkup, which is really primarily just focused on your blood pressure, because they don't want you dropping of a heart attack. The old school way, you used to have to check for scoliosis and do like a thorough conversation about any pre-existing injuries, blah 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 blah. They dropped a lot of that. Really, the most important aspect of having coverage at the show is the EMT, because again, if something happens, they're first on scene, and if you got to leave, they're throwing you in the back of the bus and they're taking you out. The anything else is just, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a kabuki theater. You're just wasting money. But the doctor, if they're reasonable, if your doctor is reasonable, hey, guess what? You're still dropping like 250. Most of these doctors, because they don't, they just know they're there. So they're not looking at the scope of the show. You may have to pay one of these guys like $400 to do 40 minutes, not even worth of effort. Um, and then you got to pay the ambulance. Some of the volunteer ambulance guys will work with you. Well, a lot of times just give them a hot dog and something to drink. They're happy. Others, they're going to smash you for their per hour rate. So it takes a lot of politicking and a lot of negotiations. But right out the door, before you sold your first ticket, you're looking at being on the hook for over $500. Right out the box. We haven't even started talking about talent, anything like that. So it's tough. It's tough. But again, your priority should be keeping guys safe. I'm of two minds about it when it comes to the talent and their medical coverage. Personally, I think as an independent contractor, really, if you take yourself seriously, you should probably not be working if you don't have your own insurance. And I know that's the reality is it's extremely difficult to do that, because if you go into the exchanges, the policies are extremely expensive unless you're under a certain income bracket. But you should put a priority in being able to protect yourself. Um, Other side of it, you also should be realizing what kind of show you're on, and be mindful that I shouldn't be, you know, you know, I shouldn't be doing something that's going to put myself, my opponent, or the promoter and having the building at risk. Sometimes a simple, tackle drop down hip toss is enough. For because generally people who go to these shows, go to these indie shows, they're normies. It's little kids who watch Raw or SmackDown and are very happy. It's mom who got dragged into it, or maybe it's dad who's like, I need an excuse to go hang out and grab a couple beers and kill some time. So they're not expecting a freaking TLC, but guys will do some dumb nonsense and put themselves at risk. Like you see it all the time. The wrestle botches where some moron wants to go do a double stomp into someone's spine, or I'm gonna do a shooting star press to the outside of the ring. I was like, well, who are you doing it for, brother? There's like 12 people in the crowd, and chances are, um, 8 of the 12 are related to people in the back, or someone's girlfriend. So it's the well, I guess so you have to also be common sense police too. Kind of forgot that part, but yeah. So it's again, there's a lot, man. There's a lot in terms of managing your expenses, but making sure that people are protected. Catering. I'm also a big believer in you got to try to provide water. Back in the day when it was like $20, $30, that used to be enough to go to Applebee's at the end of a show, and not have it come out of your pocket or give you some gas. And again, having done it, I try to go, well, listen, I can't pay a lot, but what I can do is at least feed you, and help you save the money that you were going to spend by going out. Some people appreciate it, some people don't. It is what it is. But I try to listen, I'm in attractions, hospitality. I try to create as hospitable an environment as possible for the talent because one, if it is a bigger event, you do want it to feel special. Experience is everything. I can't give you top dollar, but I will give you a very comfortable and pleasant experience. And honestly, I kind of look like this too, especially when you're first starting out. The emphasis on pay these days, it's kind of silly. Your primary responsibility as a wrestler, especially a newer one, is you're supposed to be building your body at work. You're supposed to be going out there grinding, getting experience. It's kind of goofy to me that someone who is under a certain amount of matches even expecting to be paid. Especially when you look at what guys went through in the old days. Like I always encourage people, if you get a chance to listen to anything Al Snow had to say on YouTube about his experiences, it's super relevant because he was there towards the tail end. Towards the tail end of the territory era, was in it, and then came up in what we have now. So like if the there are certain wrestlers who are in it, who can tell you like this is what it was like, this is where it went, this is where we are, and this is why it should be this way. Um, a guy like you could be a wrestler and go beg and plead to get yourself into a show, and they're there the entire weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're gonna work, and you're lucky if you got paid for wrestling on Sunday. Why? Because your presence did absolutely nothing to generate anybody in the audience. It's You were just there. You were just there. The people were going to come, regardless. But maybe if you busted your butt, put a little work in, help set up the ring, help do the carnival barking necessary to get a couple extra butts in the seats, you earn the ability to get paid. Because again, the job of a wrestler is more than just jumping in there and doing it. People get pissed off when I say it this way, but I go, we need to be honest and take a look at take a look at the last 10 years, from the Glow TV show to the Iron Claw movie. A talented teacher can take an athletic actor and teach them to do what we do. In some cases, better than what a lot of the guys do it with less than half the drama. So it kind of goes to tell you that the doing moves part of it isn't that special. Which is why, mastering all the skills, your psychology, your facials, your storytelling, developing a character and conducting yourself a certain way in and out of the ring, how your promo and what you do to promote shows. That's the gig. The wrestling is, again, that's the bam. If you can't string together at least a 5 minute match, you have no business doing it. It's all the other stuff that gets ignored, by the current crop, is what you need to actually produce a successful show. Um, it's and unfortunately, for whatever reason, it's really hard to kind of drive that messaging across. But if you can do it, if you can get enough people who buy into it and understand it, yeah, generally you're gonna have a run of successful shows. This you're always gonna eat a little crap every once in a blue moon when something, a building doesn't perform the way you hoped it would. Or just like a building's gonna overperform. You only expected X, and hey, you were very happy to get Y. It's just the name of the game. But that's what else you got?
All right, so you've seen the last couple of, I guess we can call them AEW shows. We've seen chair shots, we've seen concrete, we've seen a lot of stuff here. And I bring that up because it trickles down to the indie promotions.
Absolutely.
Monkey see, monkey do, and they go, "Oh, we need to do this." So
Yeah.
you're at the ground level dealing with this. How much does it bother you when you hear these guys? And it's probably talking about, no, you can't do a chair shot. It's not right.
Mhm.
No, can't do. Need to have certain tables. Can't do this. No, we can't use cinder blocks. And you'll have guys try to fight you on this tooth and nail, going, but it's cool. This is gonna be a great spot. We know what we're doing. Like, how often do you find yourself like, oh God, it's like talking to small little children, explaining them, like, look, there is no monster under the bed. And they keep going, no, but there is. And you're like, oh God, why am I doing this? What did I get myself into here?
Yeah, bro, listen, even when they're great, you're still talking to you're still talking to children. Um, the Yeah, well, we talked about it a little bit last time. Like, one of the things that I think is missing that was vital to when I was coming up was the weekend warrior. And by that I mean the vet who, for whatever reason, didn't make it, because there's only but so many opportunities, but they take it very seriously. They understand not just um why it works, but how it works, and they're very, very careful about protecting their sport. And Monday through Thursday, they're Joe Smith, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe the occasional Thursday, they're Johnny Thunder. And when Johnny Thunder's in the room, he knows what he's talking about, and he is there to call out the BS and all the nonsense, and stop you from doing something stupid, things like that. And so those guys are important. You need them in your locker room because you know a promoter is extremely busy. There's a lot of chaos happening at the beginning of the show. And again, like I mentioned, you're talking about guys banging out. You're talking about if something's late, or you're talking about trying to get things set up on, get set up on time. Because no matter how much time you have, there is actually never enough time. The if you got a bad internet connection, hey, guess what? It's going to tear down like 50% of your production because you still got to download music, because for whatever reason, if I know I'm on a show, I still have a hard time getting the promoter my music on time. I'm walking in and going, hey, can I send you a YouTube link? Oh, bro, like you need her on the show for like at least 2 months. What happened? There's stuff like that. So to have a locker room cop, who can kind of play the agent role, and listen, that's dumb, don't do that, but also maybe keep an ear open for someone who may be trying to go into business of themselves, or maybe a little bit of a man diva. It's important, it's important to have this. So it's when it comes to locker room, you cannot do it yourself. But it's also important to make sure that you show up into the locker room and you lay down your ground rules. We're, I haven't, I have failed to do this on occasion, but 99% of the time, I always go into the locker room and give them, give a very specific speech. One, um, you have to know your place in the card, right? Depending on your booking philosophy, you may do the Terry Taylor method of booking the WCW pay-per-view where you give them the car crash right out the box, let everybody see all the shit that they want to see, let them get themselves all tuckered out, and then by the time you hit the next match, by the time you get to the tail end of the next match, they've recovered, and now they're more, they're settled in, and they're ready to kind of enjoy the rest of the show. Or you gotta pay it. You've got to go a little more traditional and make sure that all the big stuff gets saved for your main event. So like I like from for instance, I go, hey, who here does a super kick? All right, this guy does super kick, this guy does super kick. No one does a super kick in a match. First match, hey, it's a first match. It's people are still sitting down unless it's some kind of storyline purpose. It should be fairly basic. So I'll say, hey, no false finishes. Only and by false finish I mean pinfall attempts, because technically a pinfall attempt is you're teasing a finish to the match. So I'll go, no falsies. This is you guys go in there, keep it simple. No one touches the top rope. Yes, you can go to the middle rope. No closed fists. Keep it this way. No, I don't want to see any low blows today. You have to break it down like that, because if you're not careful, and I've seen this happen on shows, you'll go 4 matches in a row where there's a low blow. You'll go 5 matches in a row where there's not just a super kick, but like double and triple super kicks. You'll have people diving out. And so by the time you get to your main, everybody's exhausted and there's legitimately nothing left for them to do. So just short of bringing a loaded gun and a rusty knife, there's going to be nothing they can do that's going to spark an element of danger, or be fascinating enough to get the people simmered up, for them to pop for the finish. The so it's you've got to be in there, and you've got to make sure that people adhere by the rules. And if they don't, you got to be prepared to throw them out in their ass. I'll give you I won't say the name of the wrestler, but he uh he does like a barbarian type gimmick, right? So he's super into the character. And I get it. You also want to be able to protect yourself. So we'll go down some ideas. Hey, this is how we're gonna do it this way, and then okay, this is why I want you to do it this way. We can try it, and I'm not a it's my way or the highway person. These matches should be a collaborative process. So just because I have an idea, um, it's up to the guys to make sure that it fits their character. I don't really care what you do as long as you tell the story the way I needed you to tell the story. I don't care how you get there. Just make sure you deliver the ending that I wanted you to deliver. The so again, I'm very cognizant about the kind of environment that we're in. So the story was, we had the scramble, so the story was going to be him and his partner running on the baby face. They beat him up, and then there's a big rescue, and it's going to devolve into a 6-man tag match. Because it was the end of the show, but it was just a little bit of a shorter show. I was like, hey, listen, guys, you can go hardcore, but by hardcore I mean WD hardcore, so it's action, not violence. The This guy again, and he'd worked for me before, so he understood what I meant. They went and kind of did they got reckless. They got reckless. And one of the things that I preach to people is, as a wrestler, it's your responsibility to also know what your incidental contact rules are. So one of the things that super pisses me off, and I see this all the time in indies, is they treat the guardrail like it's the WWE barricade. Those barricades are drilled into the floor, they're not moving. But these fools will go and they'll dive, and it could be anywhere from 150 pounds to 230 pounds of human crashing to another almost 200-pound person, and then they smash into the guardrail, and you see the guardrail slide, and it smashes into the people behind it. The Sure, if you're in the front row, there should be a certain element of expectation of just being involved in the show somehow. But to me, at no point in time should a child ever be at risk. So it's one of those. Just it's a major pet peeve of mine. But and especially New York State has very strict rules too on what you can or can't do in a match. So for us, it's one of those things where we got lucky that the commissioner bolted early because he trusts me. But these guys are jumping over the rail and into the crowd, and it was a bit much. And my audience is there's a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids. And as I'm watching and trying to scream at them from the side to tone it down, I'm watching the kids become scared. They're not into it. They're scared of it. So it's one of those times where I lost my effing mind. I try very hard to play it cool, but listen, once my fuse goes, it goes. It's just one of those things. Just one of those things. See, it's if you've ever seen the movie Dark Man, I always point to the scene at the carnival where the guy won't give him the stuffed bear, and then the guy starts poking his chest, and like the background like kind of tears, and you see a fireball, and then Liam Neeson loses his mind. It's akin to that. The We get to the next show, and the again I always tell the indie wrestlers, wherever you go, every time you go, that even if you've been there before, your mindset needs to be nobody knows who you are. Because if you are not on WWE TV, sorry, I'm gonna set some stands, some AEW stands, but if you are not on WWE TV, you are not a known quantity. That is the end all be all of it. It doesn't matter what dirt sheet or what Meltzer says. If you're not on WWE TV on a regular basis, you are not a known quantity to the people in the crowd. So no one knows who you are. So unless I'm going to show a video package trying to bring everybody up to speed, you got to cool out. So the main event of what that show was supposed to be got totally destroyed. People banged out. Main babyface had to work because he's a sheriff. A whole bunch of stuff. So like I changed up. Boom, we got the story ironed out, and the dude kind of decides to go into business for himself. Goes in the ring, has his partner cut a promo. His partner starts whining because the microphone wasn't working. No one told me they were going to do a promo. Then they bail out of the match, and what I told everybody was which was a rarity was, hey everybody, I need you to add about 2 to 3 minutes to your matches because we're moving a little too fast. Usually it's getting cut because some moron went too long. For whatever reason, we had an instance where how I budgeted everything out, we were actually flying through. So I needed to slow it down, so that we hit the 2.5 hour mark. Um, so they took what was supposed to be about a 10-minute match, chopped it down to 3 minutes, and totally screwed over the other heel team in the match because they got made fools out of. The and the guy, acted like there was nothing wrong. And then what I found out later was in one of our bigger shows, it was a dog collar match. He pretended that him and his opponent they got busted open by accident, and apparently it was the whole time it was they had planned to blade, and I have a no blood rule because the kids, we got kids. Listen, if you bust open by accident, it is what it is. But so it's just one of those like, hey, listen, and to be fair about it, when I got on the phone and I called Crowbar, I've known for a long time. I was like, listen, bro, this is the situation. Am I, should I have another conversation with this guy to try to break it down for him? Because in the past he has been pretty good. Or he's like, or do I cut ties? And Crowbar was straight for like, bro, you've been doing this long enough. The people who know who you are, they know what you've done, they know where you've been, and they know who taught you. So you don't have to take crap from anybody. It's not worth it. He can go back to he does well, I should say he doesn't work that often, so he can go back to not working that often because you're one of the only people who puts him in a prominent spot. And it just kind of is what it is, man. It's you've got to know when to be kind of you've got to walk that line of knowing when to be a hard ass because you don't want people walking all over you, but at the same time you also have to be kind of understanding because again, you do got to kind of play that therapist role slash know how to navigate the super egos or the imposter syndrome. But again, it's I want my shows to have a certain feel. There's a certain guarantee, that if I come into your building, you're gonna get a certain kind of experience. And if you're gonna be dumb enough to mess with that, I don't need you around. I don't need you around. I also do the same thing with drama. I don't really care what your beef is with this person. I don't care what they did at this other company. When you're with me, if you haven't done anything to me, I don't I'm not going to take umbrage with it. As long, if you're going to be professional with me, we're cool. Well, we're cool as long as you don't screw me. The so I don't want to hear it, man. I don't want to hear it. Again, I come from a different time. We handled our problems. We didn't run to social media to whine about it or try to flame someone. So it's like, again, as long as they're good, we're good. But if you're gonna constantly cry about it, I'm not going to use you because who the hell has time for that? I have enough going on, between make sure the commissioner's happy, and then you never know what commissioner you're going to get. New York State, sometimes they will send someone who oversees boxing, and sometimes the person who oversees boxing may think that the actual wrestling part of it is a little more real than what it is. And you have to spend some time trying to talk them off of the ledge and be like, listen, this isn't what you think. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, that we do. If you tell me I can't do X, Y, Z, you're killing my finish. You know, all that other stuff. I don't want to have to waste time catering to some man diva who, frankly, at the end of the day, didn't move a single ticket. Didn't move a single ticket. Didn't do anything for my social media engagement, and is really just kind of turning themselves into a hair up my butt.
So once again, you're not making a lot of money. You're dealing with a lot of kids who you sometimes look and go, "Oh my god, you have the maturity of an 8-year-old." It's a lot of stress. You're the final person here in charge of everything, so all the blame goes to you. Why the hell are you a wrestling promoter? You could do other things. Bounty hunter,
Yeah.
politician, dog catcher. There's easier ways to make a buck, Kevin. Why the hell are you a
Well,
wrestling promoter?
so the main reason that I started doing it, that I started doing was I had just noticed the indies had changed from when I first broke in. Um, Things had kind of changed a little bit. You know, in your area, there may not have been a lot of places to work, but if you're willing to travel, and had no expectations, you eventually could get work. Like you jump in a car and ride up with your friends to Connecticut, maybe even Massachusetts. You mix it, again, you walk in, introduce yourself to the promoter. They'll look you up and down and they'll go, okay, listen, kid, I don't have anything for you, but if you have a gear, just be over there. And maybe you got to go to one or two shows, but eventually, if you stuck through it, if you stuck to it, and you kind of showed your worth, you'd get on. Over the years, especially as those old gatekeepers kind of went away, either because they spoke too much in the documentary and got themselves in trouble with Uncle Sam, or they just or they just got done chasing the ghost and went away. Things started changing. I noticed there was the rise of the tax return promoter, as I like to call them, where they only run a couple times a year because they got a tax return or mommy gave them some money, and they only book guys that they want to take pictures with, or someone who had no business probably even wrestling at all decided that they needed their own sandbox to play in, and because of that, they only book their friends. They only book their friends or people who are willing to kiss their butts, or this school opened up and we only use our students, and if you're not one of our pod people, you're not going to get any love. The There was a lot of that that started popping up, and but I noticed that, hey, there's a lot of young raw talent floating around. these guys need a place to kind of go where they can, one, learn how to be themselves. When you do this, especially as a baby face, when you start doing this, you have a hard journey because you don't know what your character is, or if a character is assigned to you. You're playing that character in a way that people kind of expect you to do it. You haven't kind of been true to yourself yet. So you have to figure out who you are as your wrestling persona. So you're trying to get that figured out. You're also still trying to remember the match you put in your head. All that other stuff. So it's these kids, they needed a place to kind of go and hone their craft, but do it in an environment where it was safe for them to mess it up. Um, where hey, it's can I curse? Or
You can curse, yes.
where if you wanna and you ate shit, you could just go out there and eat it. You just go out there and eat it. And hey, kid, today didn't go your way, but next time's next time. Let's figure out. We'll sit down. We'll figure out what went wrong, and we'll try it again. They needed a space to kind of figure out what they want to do with the characters. They needed a space to learn how to wrestle in the TV environment. One of the things that I think I benefited from was my trainer was someone who worked for WWE, ECW, WCW. He was a traveling enhancement talent, did work in New Japan, was all over the world. And he made sure that his guys knew how to work for TV, because if you ever got a call, um, one of the things that's going to help you stand out is not, is being hyper aware where the hard cam is, understanding that there's a difference between getting your stuff in and getting your shit in, and just being prepared. A lot of places don't do that anymore. A lot of it's just run this drill, get in, get out. So like if you wanted to get to a certain level, you need to know how to do certain things. You need to understand what certain expectations are. You've got to be able to work a 3 minute match just as well as you can probably work an 8 minute match, and know how to make it work. So I wanted to give guys a space where they could again experiment, get a certain kind of experience, but also just be treated well. Be treated well. And that's when I decided to kind of launch ACW. I'd been out of the game for a while. Met a couple of kids in my area who wanted to break in, so I jumped back in, introduced them to, some people, got them kind of going. And as they were kind of growing, I'm paying attention to what they're doing. At the same time, my buddy Bull James, he had just gotten into NXT, so we were, kind of celebrating, his ascension down there. And all of a sudden, I just kind of was like, oh wait, I'm back in this, huh? I haven't done this in over 10 years, but I'm back in it. So the for me, it's really just it's about helping people create opportunities where they probably wouldn't otherwise get it, and again build that body of work. I would rather do a show with 10 you know with 10 15 kids who haven't even had 10 matches, then have to deal with a bunch of man babies who are on their alleged 200th match. Because it's about make sure that people develop the right habits. There's a lot of bad information, especially now that anybody and their mother at one point in time could have gotten a dark match on dark. Um, and they're taking their blind leading the blind information and dropping it into the pool. And now the fountain you're supposed to be drinking from has a drop of cyanide in it. It's just it's yeah, really, I wanted to make sure people had a place where they could go and work, where they would potentially come out of it better, attempt to break some bad habits, but also get them exposure to some of the guys that I came around with, guys like Damian Adams, who again, I refer to him as a master, as a master instructor. He's got a fantastic finishing school. He was a guy that was on jacked metal velocity all the time, and just by virtue of it was a different mentality back then. They weren't gonna sign him, but they knew that he knew the system and he could work with anybody. And and because of that, they always used him. And now his people, have that direct pipeline access to getting the tryouts, to getting exposure to the WWE, to AEW, and so on. It's or again, being on a card where you can sit down and have a normal conversation with someone like a Dream or a Crowbar. If you're willing to sit at the learning tree, those were really the big reasons why I do it. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you, oh, it's this great calling. 97% of the time, it is a major pain in the ass, and I go, why do I do this? And I'll jump on from like, I don't understand why I do this. All I'm doing is spending money on a bunch of ungrateful brats. But again, it always kind of comes down to the as the show is on, and the kids who are there who are having fun, and generating that experience. It makes it worthwhile. It is unforgiving. It is a very unforgiving job. But at the same time, I also make sure to tell people wrestling owes you nothing. It owes you nothing. So if you're going to be one of these bitter weirdos screaming about how you didn't make it, well, all right, brother, a lot of people don't make it. There are a lot of phenomenal D1, D2 athletes who probably should have gone to the NFL, but didn't. And they're better. And statistically, they're better than someone they see playing every Sunday. Dude, I talk about it all the time. Mario Picaro, man, Mo was one of the best wrestlers, a phenomenally gifted, talented guy, who should have been a breakout star, and just for whatever reason didn't. He was down in OVW, and it didn't click. They offered him a rough job, and he said, "No, this isn't the road I want to take." And they got a little itty bitty 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 tiny run on TNA. But this is a guy who should be a household name because he went toe to toe with the Bryan Danielsons and the Omegas, and tore it down. Tore the house down. I talk about a guy like who's currently my champion, a guy like a Dan the Man, who I think is actually criminal that more people don't know who he is. But Dan, and I make sure to tell this to a lot. I am, if you know me and you know which way I skew, I'm not a person who dwells on race or any of that other stuff. But in the early 2000s, young black talent, you were kind of pigeonholed. If you weren't a thug and if you couldn't shuck and jive, most promoters did not know what to do with you. Or let's be honest, if you were someone like me, other than being big and kind of being the guy who could come close to winning the big one, or you're the threat for the champion, they weren't going to put a title on you. And I'm not going to drop the name of someone in particular, but Dan was one of those guys who stuck to his principles and said, no, this is how I'm going to perform. This is what I have to offer you. If you don't want to see it, I'm going to make you see it. He was also there was a lot of free use of hard R's back then. And Dan was a guy who, if someone threw it around, he would take like a younger guy, like we said, I'll handle it. And I watched Dan one day. Well, tell the story. We were at a show. We were at a show, and the promoter's son was there, who was also a wrestler. It was terrible. But his girlfriend was there. And not that his girlfriend was anything worth writing home to mom about, and I'm being very generous. For whatever reason, she kept making the googly eyes. Kept making the googly eyes at the brothers, and the promoter's son took umbrage with it, and he dropped a hard R. And Dan said, "I'll work them." And the bell rings, and they go to lock up. Dan rocks him in the draw. The kid drops like a ton of bricks, and then I watched Dan do the George Jefferson dance on his face. And after that, he was blackballed for a really long time. But because of Dan and what he did in the Northeast, he made it possible for a kid like a Colton Charles now, Ray Pittman, Kenny Bengals, and a lot of Bobby Ocean, for guys to go out there and be themselves and not have to be a pimp or not have to be a thug and any of the other nonsense. You can kind of just shine on your own laurels now and be yourself. And listen, Dan persevered, and finally, he has gotten the opportunity to work, to work names and to kind of get himself out there. You know, when Adam Rose hit the Indies, Dan was the first person that he worked, and and Kruger loved him so much that when if they were in an area where Dan was, he told the promoters that this is the guy I want to work. And I think a proud moment for me was when I did my first show and I put up a picture. It was Dan versus Bull James, and again, we're all really close. Um, Rose commented on it, said these are two of my favorite mates, for Bull, for Bull and Dan the Man. And so kind of see Dan kind of get a little bit shine now. I'm happy for him, but again, this is a guy who is a consummate entertainer. Wherever we go, you give Dan the microphone, and people lose their effing minds. One of the best promo guys out there ever. Um, and so if you're bored, I think go to Instagram, look up Team Shazam or Dan the Man, and watch this guy. I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad match. And again, just one of the best promo people out there. And again, it's a rarity, but you saw someone you're going to stick to the principles and actually change things for people. So again, that's a big part of also why I run is to because there's still a little bit of stupidity out there, but there's always a better way to do it. And seeing people like that, seeing good people thrive, seeing newer kids learn, and just seeing the people who come to these shows have fun and tell you it's how much of a good time they had. That's what makes it worthwhile. That's what makes it worthwhile. It's again, wrestling doesn't owe you anything. Honestly, you owe, if you're a wrestler, you owe the sport more than it could ever owe you. And it's up to you as a performer to do your due diligence, to understand the why and the how, why it works, to make sure that the people coming after you have the same respect and reverence for it, to make sure that you do your part to elevate everybody else around you, and to have the Vidal Sassoon mentality of if I don't look good, they don't look good. Or rather, if they don't look good, I don't look good mentality. Because I also see a lot of younger cats whining and crying because they don't know who a guy is. I'm like, what do you mean? You should be able to walk into any building and rest with anybody. That shouldn't matter if you are or are not friends with this person. So, there's a lot of work to be done still, but I enjoy doing the hard work and I guess maybe a little bit of the misery as long as the payoff as long as the payoff is there, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. And the payoff is just some little kids having fun. That's why I kind of put up all this insanity. And then I get to meet cool people like you. So I'm having a lot of fun in the wrestling podcast space. A lot of really good people. With some fun debate. We got to get me, you, and Duke together and hash out this Cody beef.
Yeah, there's a better chance of ABC being honest in debates than that happening. But that's a whole different story, different day. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to have on the show. I give you from American Colosseum Wrestling. I give you promoter wrestler, the 26-inch pythons himself. I give you Kevin Apollo. So, Kevin, once again, where can people check you out at? Where is the Instagram, the Twitter, the
Sure.
website? Where can fans hit you up at?
So, if you want, I always tell me to go to the ACW Twitter, which is ACW_Coliseum, spelled like Pokemon Coliseum, the COLOSSEUM version of the Coliseum. I took the summer off. I just needed some time to decompress. But we're gonna be back in the Haverstraw Community Center here in Rockland County on a 10/25 for our holiday show, Fright or Fight. And again in the Palisades Mall November 2nd. And then I'm working on a Christmas show, Santa Slam. So I'll have a date for that soon. But if it, go to our Instagram and Twitter. I have the exact same handle. I have to admit, I apologize. I'm notoriously terrible at updating Twitter for that one. If you want to hit me up directly, War Dog Apollo. Same breakdown on Twitter and Instagram. I've been a little more active on Twitter these days. So feel free to hit me on Twitter. And if you got any questions, feel free to let me know. I am always up for a cordial but spirited debate. I have my feelings on what we watched last week on pay-per-view. I'd say right now, I don't take umbrage with the plastic bag. I don't take umbrage with the house being burned down. But oh my God, the cinder block, the hypodermic needle, and that stupid chair shot, some of the worst stuff I think I've ever seen on TV. Should not have happened. Should not have happened. It's just insane to me in this day and age that between Chris Nowinski, Benoit, even Raven, to see people taking top of the head chair shots, it's insane to me. It's absolutely insane to me. I don't care, if you gimmick the chair. There's no such thing as shaving down the chair. It's just not a thing. Yes, there's a way to gimmick a chair, but just the risk of it alone, the name of the game in this sport is longevity. You should be aspiring to be Billy freaking Gunn, a guy who's what is he in his 60s yet or knocking on his 60s, but is still going, at a high level. And at this rate, I don't know if it's through I don't know if it's through delusion or cowardice. There doesn't seem to be anybody back there who wants to tell these guys the hard truths. But you cheer for these guys now, but you're not gonna see them in 10 years. And we're talking about really young men who should have a lot to give. And it's criminal that you don't see people stepping up to do the right thing. But other than that, it's I said let's keep it fun and we can talk about it. And hopefully I'll be talking to you soon.
Kevin and Paul, ladies and gentlemen, once again, always on a pleasure. Have you on the show. We come back. A lot more going on here. Only on its last call. Last call of the alcohol, only on the lastcallpodcast.com.